This is the Produce Your Own Life podcast. Life is a script. It's time to write your story. Welcome your host, actor, director, producer, writer, and author of the recently released book, Shattered, A Journey Through the Pieces, the man who inspires millions through storytelling and interviews, the one, the only, Rodney Damon Collins.
What's up, everybody? This is the Produce Your Own Life podcast. My name is Rodney. I am the host and creator of the show. Make sure you are liking the podcast, you are sharing the podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, wherever you're watching and listening. Also, make sure you are subscribing. It's available on every podcast platform out there: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, everywhere. And we are also in 12 countries right now. So we thank you very much for all the subscribers. Remember, life is a script. It's time to write yours. That's what we live by. And today, this sharp dressed brother sitting over here, sitting to the whatever side of me right here with the nice tie and jacket on and looking very extinguished with that nice piano in the background, which I can jump on and try to play. This brother is an incredible poet. He is an incredible historian that I've come to know for the past, good Lord, I won't even say how many years, bro, because we just like that. We go way back like volunteers. So I think at least 30 years we've known each other. And I had the pleasure of meeting him and working with him in corporate America. And we continued this relationship. He is an activist. He is somebody that I have high respect and regard for. Without further ado, let's show some love and welcome Cleveland's own Vince Robinson. You know, I had to show some love, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And just let me tell you what an honor it is to have this conversation with you, and to thank you for inviting me to do this. This follows a conversation that we had a few weeks ago and got a lot of positive feedback from it, man. But 12 countries, man, I should be nervous right now.
Yeah, believe me, it's all good. It's all good. You know, I've seen India, I've seen Russia, UK. We got subscribers, so I'm very grateful that it's growing. But they're gonna benefit from your voice today.
All right. Well, let's hope we fulfill their expectations, brother.
Oh, no doubt. Expectations already filled, bro. Look how you showed up.
All right.
You know,
I couldn't show up looking like a bum, when I'm sitting with somebody who's seen around the world. So I left a T-shirt upstairs, man.
Hey, I have no problem with that. I have the highest respect and I salute, man. So what's going on, man? I know we had an incredible conversation a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it from my end. Now we switch gears and we get a chance for people to get a chance to learn more about Vince and what it's about. So I'm gonna open up the platform, man, for just kind of break it down what you've been up to lately, man. Yeah, what's going on in your life?
Yeah, I'm working on a lot of different things at one time. I think that was what happened when I decided to walk away from the job that I was working. The universe expands, and when the universe expands, and your opportunities expand. So, there was a time that I would wonder, well, why not me? Why am I not doing what that person is doing or what that other person is doing? But I've come to the conclusion that then was not the time, and what I'm finding out is that now is the time. So, for instance, I've been invited to participate in an AR, which is augmented reality, a public art installation. I, along with 11 other artists, were chosen to install virtual art in different neighborhoods in Cleveland.
Oh,
so I'm in the community engagement aspect of it and connecting with people in meetings and asking them what they'd like to see. I've chosen a spot at East 99th and Buckeye to
right.
Whatever they deem is appropriate for that space. But what will happen is you'll be able to go to that location and hold up your cell phone or a tablet or something, and looking into your cell phone, you'll be able to see a virtual piece of art that has been placed in space. So really excited about that. It's being done in conjunction with the Cleveland Sculpture Center. They're going to have an exhibition in July in which they will feature the art that we've created for these different public art installations. So that's just one thing that I'm doing. In the midst of all of this, I also produce 2 radio shows. I also produce a television show, and I'm doing the online show that I featured you in a couple weeks ago. So I'm doing all those things. And in the midst of all of that, I'm a poet, a performance poet. So I do virtual shows from time to time. I've teamed up with my colleague, Brother Mwatabu Okanta, who was a grad student when I was at Kent State University back in the 70s. And he told me that, brother, you're a poet. I took a class called the Black Writers Workshop, and I wrote poetry for that class. And I guess he recognized my talent. So he and I reconnected later on in life. We came back together during the 80s. And then in the 2000s, we started performing together. I've served as his musical director for a band that he has used to do his music. And now he borrows my band to do his music. So we've done quite a bit, man. We played festivals, and we played prestigious venues like Nighttown in Cleveland, and we performed at West Virginia State University a few years back during their Kwanzas. I think we did that twice. So we've just done a lot. So, you know, I have a passion for music. I have a passion for the written word. I'm a journalist. I write for a local newspaper, and I review concerts. I cover political events. I just do a lot of things, you know, wherever the creator places me to utilize the talent that I have been given, that's where I am. So a lot of stuff going on. It's all good. And I just look forward to living every day.
Man, everything you telling me, man, I was like, whew, that's a workout. That's a lot. And that's beautiful because you're using all your talents and gifts. I want to go right back real quick to the virtual art show. Does that play in with the NFTs, you know, that's becoming very popular right now? Like, people are getting virtual art and it's valuable, and people are able to, you know, make money, sell and make money off their art like that.
Yeah, I do think there is an intersection there. And I'll be honest with you, I just found out about NFTs within the past month or so. I found out about AR art about 4 months ago when I was invited to participate in the project. So I'm not completely familiar with how NFTs work, but I know that when it comes to creating art and having people interested in your art and wanting to invest in your art, I think the NFT platform is a very plausible platform that folks will be able to take advantage of and walk away from the paradigm of exploitation that occurs with artists. You know, we're on this platform and we're streaming live to all these different platforms. But, you know, the reality of that is that someone other than us is capitalizing to a much greater extent on our work, you know. So having a vehicle like an NFT allows you to remove the middle person from the process and then, you know, channel some of the revenues that come from the creation of your art back to you. You know, back in the day, you would be excited to sign that record contract, and you didn't read the fine print. You were just excited to have the opportunity, you know, to be in the spotlight. So, you know, if you didn't write the song, if you don't own the masters, if you don't own the product, you're really just a pawn in the game, you know. And we can reflect on TLC. You know, they were the hottest group on the planet and sold millions of records. And after a year of record sales and concerts and everything, by the time they paid everyone, they were looking at $50,000, you know, when their work produced millions and millions of dollars. You know, there's no equity in that. There's no fairness in that. But the typical paradigm is that when you sign a contract, you sign away your ability to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So, you know, with the NFTs, you're creating an ability to be self-sufficient because of the fact that people are investing in you. And yes, they get a piece of you, but you get the larger piece of yourself. And that's the most important part of it. And it's not so just so that you can stack your chips and be, high on the hog or rich or all that. It's about giving you an ability to create so that you can give back.
Yes.
You give through the creation of your art, and people are able to facilitate healing within themselves as a result of their exposure to and connection to your art. So that's beautiful, but also in addition to that, it provides an opportunity for you to provide for yourself and in the process provide for others. So it's a win-win situation when you change the platform from one of exploitation to one of building and enrichment and cultivation and providing for others.
Man, that's such a beautiful explanation. I'm glad we got it recorded because when people listen to this, they really need to understand that NFTs it's coming. It's like a snowball because it's becoming an avalanche very quickly, especially in the day and time that we live in. And I can see in the near future, there's going to be Zoom, like people who are going to host like Zoom private invites to come look at their art and purchase their art. It's going to be art shows done on Zoom. It's going to be crazy. All kind of stuff is coming. So it's exciting.
Well, we're really in the midst of significant adjustments to the lives that we're living. We took a pause last year. And a lot of people looked at it like, well, there's this virus out there and, everybody needs to stay at home and, woe is us and woe is me and all of that. But really, there was a much greater situation at play. And it was more than just the pandemic that we're navigating through right now. It was really actually a time in which the universe said, it's time to take a pause. It's time for things to be restructured. It's time for things to begin to be done in a different way. So out of that pause, we've been able to realize that we can do things differently and get a different reward. So, there's been a lot of conversations about how artists were sequestered, how they were basically, we got sat down because we were told, well, you can't perform in a venue because you can't have so many people together in one space because of the danger that coming together represents. So what happened was we leveraged technology. So now, instead of having that small room with just 50 people in it, you've got access to technology that allows you to expand your audience beyond the parameters of the walls that you're in and out into a greater. So just like now, you said 12 countries.
Yes.
Well, a year or two ago, it would have just been one country. It may have been just one state. It may have been just one city, but now we're around the world. I do broadcasts from time to time, and I might be on Facebook Live, and somebody all the way from Kenya is watching, someone all the way from Ghana. I did a show last year with a friend of mine, a colleague of mine that I traveled to Egypt with in 2019, all the way in Singapore.
Wow.
And we did an interview for radio, but I mean, he's on the other side of the world. When it's 11 p.m. here in Cleveland, it's 11 a.m. in Singapore. But we can do those things because of technology, and it's funny, man. I was remembering the other day about being sweet on this young lady. This was way back in like 1981, 82, somewhere back then,
Okay.
And the mechanics of our communication, it was just crazy because she had to be able to get to a phone booth or something, on the other side of the world, and we had the time difference and all of that. And then there were the long distance charges and, how you work through all that. And now you got WhatsApp, you got Telegram.
Yes.
You pick up the phone and talk to somebody on the other side of the planet, and it's not costing anything other than, your monthly for your cell phone bill. I mean, things have changed so much. In conversation with someone the other day, she brought up the fact that we live in a time, based on our age, and I might be a few years older than you, but we've actually seen the most changes in technology. I mean,
yeah,
I can remember, Rodney, I can remember being a child and having a cap gun.
I do too.
It was a metal gun with a plastic handle on it, and you had this red roll that had these little black dots on it, and the trigger would activate the hammer, and it would strike that little black dot on the tape, and it would make a little small explosion, and it was like you were shooting a gun.
Yeah.
But now you got kids that have video games, and they're shooting. They're shooting machine guns and laser guns and all of that. But, the fact is we've been witness to all those changes. So to go from that to that tactile sensation of hitting the key on your controller and making something happen, you're jumping over buildings and swimming across streams and all those other things that happen in the virtual world. It really is amazing, But the real important thing, I have to interject this, is that in spite of all of those things that we have that involve electronics and technology, it's still so important to take moments to deal with the actual world, to put your hands on that tree, to take your shoes off and plant your feet on the ground and allow those positive ions to just fall off of your body and let that inflammation subside a little bit, because you have connected to the very thing that gives you life, So it's good that we have these things, but it's like my mother always says to me. She says, son, sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses.
Just that simple. Just stop.
That simple. Just that simple.
And there's nothing that can replace, to me, a handwritten note. Like my wife, man, a handwritten note, the smallest thing is just get her. We were doing a love language test, and her love language is like small things. She don't care about big gifts. I remember when I upgraded her engagement ring, and not engagement ring, but her wedding ring, after our 10 years of marriage. She opened it. She was like, yeah, this is cool. Now I spent a lot of money on this upgrade too. Like my son and daughter was all pumped. I was pumped. And she was just like, oh, it's nice. I'm like, I didn't realize it's the small things that really get to her. So when we were in college and dating, we didn't have cell phones. So we were like, I was like, when we were apart for like breaks and stuff, I would get my old tape recorder and I would dictate a note to her. And then I would record little love songs in between the notes. So almost doing my own little album to her, So that stuff, I still think that hits over anything else we can do, because it's your time, it's your heart invested in it. So nothing can replace that. Like with your mom, that's kind of like stopping to smell the roses. And we need to do more of that. But so that leads me to you being a poet, and you've been a poet since probably it was before college. You had the gift before college. So, kind of break down with, feel free if you want to drop a little poetry on us, for the listeners, so they can kind of get a feel of what it would be like. You never know.
Man,
I need to book Vince now. We need him in our show. So,
okay.
It's your time, brother. If you want to.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, cool. See, he gonna give us some poetry. This is what I love. This is what I love about this our platform, we get a chance to do what we want to do. And this is my brother. I want his gifts to be on full display. Put that book a little closer. Yeah, it say that words. Bam. Y'all see that?
That's
That
the
words.
book. That's
that
the
words.
This baby was born in 2015, and it is a collection of poems that I've written over a relatively short period of time. I don't have any 40 or 50 year poems in here, but since you brought up your beloved, and I don't want to take up too much time, I'm going to read a very short poem.
Go ahead.
But it's a love poem.
All right.
And it's called 360.
Okay.
You are the air that surrounds me, breath that flows. You are light bringing me day and moon shining with stars through midnight blues. You are words stimulating thoughts, imagined, not in my brain, but in my universe. You are rain, soothing a soul parched by passivity. Your song is a balm to ears numbed by the din of ignorant sentences. You are rhythm, calming an uneasy spirit with a gentle lapping of shallow waves on wet sand, rocking, chasing tension's acidic essence into alkalinity. Your serenity calls me to a place where bliss resides, high and holy, sacred as a promise kept, whole, balanced, warm. Your lips unlock heaven's door. You are love.
Woo!
Yeah. So that poem was actually a poem that I wrote imagining if I were to get married, what my vows would sound like.
Ooh.
What I would want to communicate to my beloved. So that's where that poem came from. And it's really kind of an unusual poem because when you connect with my work, you'll find that angry Black man in it too.
Right.
Most folks know.
Did he say that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So but that's just a small sample of the love stuff.
Where can they get that book?
You can actually get it on Amazon. I am going to have to step up my game though, because the Amazon default was just one of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
When I originally did this book, I went through a woman here locally named Deborah Wright.
Okay.
And the way that it happened was I was asked to perform music for a friend of mine who was publishing her first book. And so we had this event at the East Cleveland Public Library, and I had my fellas with us on stage, and she came out and she read from the book, and a friend of mine named Simi Davis was a vocalist, so she sang My Funny Valentine and some other stuff that we did. And then my friend Jackie Gillen, who is the author who inspired me to approach her publisher, she put on a nice show. So I said, well, to myself, of course, if she can do it, why can't I do it? So I just said, hey, Ms. Wright, I would love to publish a book. What do I have to do? And basically, it was a transaction. We can do it for this amount, and you give me the manuscript, and we'll take it from there. So I pulled all these poems together, and they were different fonts, and it was just all crazy. But I turned it over to her, and what I got back from her was a manuscript. So then I edited the manuscript and I gave it back to her, and this is the final product. It went through a few different changes, but everything happens for a reason. For instance, the spine of the book actually has my name and the title of the book on it, so that if it's placed on a shelf, someone would be able to. Those are little intricacies that I wasn't aware of, and then down the line, because of my connection to other authors, I found out how important it is for you to market your own books, because once again, Amazon being the middleman or the middle woman or middle person to be, politically correct these days. they take 60%, man. You know,
Yes.
so if your book isn't priced at the sweet spot, you end up getting so little that you have to jack up the price in order for it to be worth your while. So
Yes.
it's convenient because my book is on Amazon, and I can tell people go there and get it. But what really needs to happen with authors is that you set up your own website. You send people to your website to get the book. Then that way you can capitalize or profit from your work. And then there's the NFT piece that you brought up.
That leads us to what, a lot of, like, we started the conversation talking about ownership a lot, and how that really is something that we should be thinking, and really not just thinking, but acting in that way with everything. And I wanted to show you this too, just to let you know. I listen. See this book right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Name in the mail, the book you tell me to get. So I got that. I listened to you, but also just going out to it, empower each other. So, like, in what ways outside of, I know you have the poetry and you have your show, like, how are you really using that platform to go ahead and empower more people with ownership? Because I know you're doing it. So just drop it on.
Well, I don't think of us as individuals, who stand alone. I think of us as individuals who stand with others.
Okay.
So when I look at ways of doing things, I'm thinking in terms of how we can come together and empower ourselves. So one other thing that I'm dealing with right now is having a performance venue.
Okay.
It's self-contained. There's a stage in there. We've got lights, we've got sound, we've got everything. And my vision for this space, particularly in light of what has happened during the past year, is to create a performance venue that can be virtual. Oh. So if you're having difficulty reaching an audience, you can utilize this vehicle to get your art out to a much wider audience. But, I also see it as a way for a community of musicians to be able to utilize the space to empower themselves. So if you came in and let's say you rented this space and you paid to rent the space, you'd be able to capitalize on an international audience. So, unlike being able to seat 60 people, which I can do, you could expose your concert or your performance to an audience of 6,000. So if you had the idea and you had an entrepreneurial spirit and you took time to market and promote, you could capitalize in a much greater way than you would if you were just serving an audience of 60 people. But the problem is that we've been so used to doing things a certain way. You show up to a performance, somebody pays you, and then you play, and then you go home, that you don't really see the value in having that kind of space. So, I've really had to pivot from that idea simply because of the challenge in engaging people. But the other idea that I would have would be to create a space where not only do you give folks the opportunity to do that, but as a part of the process, you also provide them education and information about things like investing in cryptocurrency so that you can create the capital to create that paradigm on your own. So this is you financing your own record contract as opposed to having somebody else do it for you. We have this whole nonprofit world. And in the nonprofit world, basically, you go to people and you ask them for donations because they support your mission. But whenever you have that transactional experience, there are also expectations based on delivery of the vision. Okay, so in short words, there are strings attached. Okay. Somebody gave you something and they expect something in return, even if it's just you explaining what you were trying to do. but they want something. All I'm saying is if you create whatever's needed for you to facilitate your dream, you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to navigate those strings that are attached to you to fulfill the expectations, or deal with the disappointment that came with, wow, I gave that person all that money and this is what we got. You see? So my idea is basically to empower people to create income and to create revenue and to create profits that will enable them to facilitate whatever their heart's desire is. A few moments ago, you talked about the importance of ownership.
Yes.
And again, you can look at a couple of different figures in our history and see how key ownership was to their success and what it allowed them to create. So the first person that I would mention is Flip Wilson.
Yes.
Flip Wilson owned his show. And as a result of ownership of his show, when he finished that show, he didn't have to do anything else. He's still getting paid from the creation of that show.
Yes.
When you look at somebody like Don Cornelius, same thing. He owned his show. And I remember for the longest time, it was the longest running syndicated music show in television history. And the other part of that, though, was that it was an integral aspect of documenting the history of musicians in our country because no one else was doing it. So when you look for footage of all these R&B legends and some of the jazz legends that we know, what do you see? You're seeing Soul Train. You're seeing performance on Soul Train. So, it was a great thing that he did. And so many artists owe their livelihood, their exposure, their history. They owe it to Don Cornelius because he owned his show.
Man, that is extremely powerful too, the way you break that down, because I remember watching, Soul Train as a kid. Saturday afternoons when it be on, people, you didn't really understand fully what was happening, and to know that now, I feel like this whole sense of responsibility. To make sure people coming behind me really understand, like, yes, we're in entertainment, but we're really in the business of ownership. That's what we're really in the business of, and really trying to help empower each other. That's what we're empowering each other to use our art, use our gifts. We're employing ourselves that way. That's what it breaks down to. And so I'm really fully understanding that now that I work in the industry and I produce my own film, and I saw all the little intricacies that are involved and all the, the work that's involved. So, but I love the concept that we create ways through Bitcoin mining and other ways to finance our own dreams. So we're not worried. We're not handcuffed by somebody else telling us, well, I invested so and so. I expect to see this from your product. I didn't see that. So then they want to sue you. All kind of stuff you open yourself up to. So I just wanted to say, man, it just was giving me chills listening to you every time I hear that. And when I watched August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, you saw how Viola Davis, first of all, she just was Ma Rainey. I never met or I didn't know much about Ma Rainey till I read the play by August Wilson, but to see Viola Davis, the way she embodied her, it was powerful. She really painted an incredible picture of how, but she was an owner. She owned her stuff. So that's what it's about, baby. That's what it's about. It's about owning. And now you own a couple TV shows. You got your podcast, a radio show that you do. You want to break it down, like what does those shows, what's entailed in those shows?
Well, the radio shows are on two different platforms. The FM show is called Open Door, and it's an extension of the television show that I do at Community Focused Television in Macedonia, Ohio. And basically, I was doing this half-hour television show, and then I was doing another show on WOVU FM. And I was just looking for a way to be able to tell stories or to give folks an opportunity to tell their story. Because, I was doing this half-hour television show and I was noticing how that half hour just goes by so quickly, and because it is community television, so to speak, there's no requirement that we run commercials because there are no commercials. There would just be PSAs.
Yes.
But my thought was, well, this subject matter is so engaging. Why do we need to waste time with the PSA? So I just started doing my shows. It's like 28 minutes and 30 seconds of continuous conversation. And so I was doing the 360 Info Network radio show on 2 different stations at one time.
Yes.
And the owner or the manager of the station said, well, we can't let you have, the same show on 2 different stations. So, we're going to have to discontinue your show. I said, well, I have another show because I pitched him 2 shows at the same time. He said, well, let's look at the other show. So that other show became Open Door. And with that, I also got an opportunity to expand my time on the station from a half hour to an hour. I'm dealing with 3 segment breaks. So, I got to do the PSAs. But even within that, and just reflecting on the pandemic, last year, I started learning how to mix music in GarageBand on a computer. Right. So I composed a PSA, which is running on Spectrum Cable here in Ohio, and it was an informational PSA about COVID. Okay. What I did was I wrote a poem that became the script, and I wrote the music that goes behind it, and it was actually like a 20-track recording. This is my first major recording, but it's 20 tracks, including like 10 vocal tracks and the instrumentation that I played all the instruments except the drum track. I got a professional drummer doing that, but everything else, from the bass to the shakerade to the congas, all the different instruments that were involved in that, I executed on my keyboard, Wow. So yeah. And in addition to that, there's a video that goes along with the music. And the video is what's airing on Spectrum Cable.
Oh, all right.
I got some friends. You talk about producing. I got some friends. One who was a singer, a friend of mine who is a yoga instructor, and her daughter. And they're the stars of my commercial.
Oh, wow.
So I shot all the video. I did all of the music.
Yeah.
And then I pushed it out there. So it just an example of how, you take lemons and you turn them into lemonade. And that's exactly what happened.
That's some sweet lemonade right there.
Yeah. So in terms of the 2 shows, Open Door is primarily a show where people tell their stories. For instance, yesterday I had Chuck Conway Jr. on. Okay. Chuck Conway Jr. is the son of Chuck Conway Sr., who is a radio personality that was, he was just on top of the charts in Cleveland. He and Ken Hawkins Sr. So Ken Hawkins Sr., Chuck Conway Sr., they were both radio personalities, promoters, in the entertainment business. So I interviewed Chuck, and Chuck is telling me stories about how he was a child announcer at Leo's Casino. This brother was telling some stories, man. He was talking about how the manager of the OJs and the owner of Leo's Casino were involved in crap games, that were shooting craps. And he said that because of the losses incurred by the OJ's manager, that they ended up doing several free performances. Oh, right. Yeah. And he described the fact that the OJs and the Temptations were in competition with each other because You know, the Temptations came down from Detroit to do shows here in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And, you know, he said that the OJs never lost. You know, but I'm just thinking about, you know, the fact that the OJs are going up against the Temptations and they're putting their heart and souls in it, but they're not getting paid.
That's serious, man. That is serious.
Yeah. So, you know, again, it's about being able to tell those stories and to share those stories with the listening audience. So that's what that is. The 360 Info Network show is a show that connects Cleveland and international audiences, actually, with some of our prominent Afrocentric scholars. So we've had folks like Dr. Charles Finch, Professor James Small, Dr. Malefi Asante, I mean, you name it. Anthony Browder, you know, Dr. Ranoko Rashidi, who is a friend and colleague of mine. We've had several of them on, and then, you know, we'll do other kinds of shows of community interest, but it's less of a biographical show and more of an informational show. So that show airs on AM 1490 Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock. And you can find it on the World Wide Web at newstalkcleveland.com. And then I have a YouTube channel, and I put podcasts of both shows on my YouTube channel. So if you're not able to tune in on Saturday or Monday at 11 in the morning when Open Door on WOVU airs, you can always catch the podcast on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I want everybody to know how to stay in contact. I do want to talk about, you know, I know I told you we're going to be about a certain time. You're my brother, so I'm like, that's why I just said, let's keep the party going a little bit longer. Okay. I always enjoy talking to you. When you traveled overseas, you traveled to Egypt, to Africa, you've been to the continent, the motherland. How much would you say that has had of an influence on your thought process and your identity? How, you know, because I encourage so many people that, you know, especially Black Americans, we need to go to Africa.
Yes.
And connect. So would you share that with us?
Sure. You know, I am a child of the 70s. I can remember the assassination, however, of Dr. Martin Luther King, because it happened on my 11th birthday.
Wow.
I can remember the assassination of John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. So when I go back, you know, I know that there were some things that were going on in society that really needed to be addressed. And then I can remember being a student at Atwater High School in Atwater, California, and hearing James Brown say it loud, "I'm Black and I'm proud." You know, and what happened on one day, I don't know what precipitated it, but, you know, the Black students at Atwater High School took over the cafeteria. And we had a record player, and we had the record, and we put the record on, and we walked around the cafeteria, and we were just saying, "Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud." You know, so, you know, at the time, my father was taking Black history classes at Merced College. So I was getting an exposure to Black history and Black art. I remember seeing a book called Black Fire, and it was an anthology of Black poets and Black writers. So fast forward a few more years, I end up at Kent State University and finding a home in the Department of Pan-African Studies. You know, so I'm the son of a military veteran, and we traveled the world, so international was nothing new to me. Africa was. So, you know, going through 5 years of Pan-African Studies at Kent State University, I wanted to see Africa.
Yes.
Because I knew that it was meaningful. So in 1981, I went to Northeast Africa. Now, this just to show you how things go. Most people, when you say Israel, they don't think of Israel being in Africa. But I was listening to an interview that I recorded over the weekend with someone who spent considerable time there. And he said when he was in Egypt, he stood on one side of the Nile and he realized that Hank Aaron could hit a home run across the Nile. That's how close Egypt is to Israel.
Wow.
And the only thing that really separates them is the Suez Canal, or a river, or a body of water. But when you look at going underneath that water,
yes,
it's still connected.
Yes.
And it is actually Northeast Africa. So I set my feet on African soil for the first time in 1981. And while I was there, I actually saw Black people who were indigenous. Because when we think about Israel, we always think about Jewish folk who live there, who are autonomous and so forth and so on. So you think of it as being theirs and not ours. But when I connected with people who had been there for generations, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is Africa. We separate the Saudi Peninsula from Africa, but it's all part of the same area of the world. So I got a feel for what it was like, and then years later, I think it was like maybe 11 or 12 years later, I ended up over there again. But this time I went from Israel into Egypt. So I've been to Jerusalem more than once. I've been there at the Wailing Wall and all that, and it really didn't have much of a physical impact on me. I didn't have any type of spiritual epiphany or anything like that. But when I was in Egypt on the back end of a trip to Israel to shoot a documentary for Wilberforce University, I decided to drive to Alexandria. And on the way to Alexandria, I and my partner were driving past the Great Pyramid. And when I looked over and I saw it, I had this physical reaction. It was like, how the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you get goose pimples and all of that?
Yes.
That's what happened. I just had this warm feeling go through me. That's something that I'll never forget.
Wow.
We stopped at the Great Pyramid. And I knew it was meaningful, but I didn't know how.
Yes.
And at the time, there was no one there. It was like it wasn't a tourist attraction. There was this guy who was there, and my partner was in the car, and he said, "Would you like for me to watch the car?" And I'm like, "Well, you see, there's somebody in the car."
Right.
He starts to tell me about him having babies at home and all this other kind of stuff. So he was just really looking for a donation or whatever. But it was like that. So I said, well, let me go in. So I went in. There was an opening that you could go in. It was just dark. I didn't have a flashlight or anything. So there wasn't really much to see. But I knew that there was something special about this place. Then when I came back in 2019 and I was able to go up through that pyramid up to the top where they have a chamber and a sarcophagus up there, that's when it really sank in, the importance of where I was. It was hugely different, though. I mean, now it is completely commercialized. So they've got this big structure that you go through in order to access the pyramid. And there's they got the metal detectors and the conveyor belt and all of that. So it's highly commercialized right now. So a lot of things have happened since then. But, I was able to have that experience, and I was also able to go to West Africa, which I always wanted to do. And I know you've been to Liberia, so you have a grasp of what it's like, to go to this country, and everywhere you look, you see people who look like you doing everything that needs to be done, and it's such a counter to the narrative that we have over here, because we're always used to having other people being responsible for everything, the mayor, the city council, the bank president, all the people who are making decisions a lot of times are people who don't look like us. you know.
Yes,
But when
sir.
you go there, you know, we doing everything, you know,
Yeah.
which is to say that we are self-sufficient, we are capable, you know, and I think we don't pat ourselves on the back enough to understand how pivotal a role we've played in the success of this country, you know, because if it were not for us, this country would not be what it is today. It wouldn't be what it was yesterday, you know, and I venture to say it probably won't be what it will be tomorrow without us, you know. So I know I walked around the tree, but
I don't care. It's good.
yeah, but you know, connecting with Africa is important because it changes your perspective on who you are. And I can tell you, after having laid on the ground in Merowe,
Mm-hmm.
which is a place in Sudan where some of the oldest pyramids on earth exist, and having that connection, I feel as though I have had my initiation.
Mm.
You know, that was an initiation because I spent the night there, you know, no toilet, no running water, you know, all of the comforts of home weren't there. I was in a pup tent, and the way things went down, there were like 7 or 8 other people. Everybody got the 2-man tent. I got the 1-person tent.
Like,
so you know, that was a real initiation, but I'm grateful for it, you know, because that and just, you know, Sudan was just an amazing experience, man. I mean, when we were in Egypt, we were for the most part on a Mercedes bus, so you can sit up high and air conditioned comfort, and you know, you're riding in the lap of luxury. When we were in Sudan, we were in Toyota Land Cruisers that were probably about 10, 15 years old. So they weren't new vehicles. And I don't know why, but we didn't even turn the air conditioning on, man. We had the windows open. We were right there on the ground, right close to the people, you know, and it was so beautiful, man, because people would see us, and for whatever reason, they knew that we weren't Sudanese.
Yeah.
But they were just like, wow, hey, how you doing? You know, it was just such a warm thing. And, you know, the contrast between Egypt and Sudan in ways, it's like night and day. And it's because of the people, you know, and in Egypt, you see, I'll just put it this way, you see a lot more lighter complexions.
Yes.
When you go into Sudan, you see the opposite of that.
Yes.
You know, it's really more like being in Liberia or Ghana.
Yes.
And despite the fact that the airport in Cairo is just this gleaming, you know, this modernistic structure, you get to Sudan and you're looking around and you be like, whoa, you know. But the people, you know, because the people are what they are and who they are, all that stuff doesn't matter. You know, we got to Sudan, and one of our traveling partners did not have their documentation, and we had to get it from we had to get it online.
Yes.
And me and a few other people, we're behind the counter, sitting at somebody's desk with our hands on the computer, working this out. I mean, that ain't gonna happen in Egypt.
No.
That's not gonna happen in Germany.
No.
It's not gonna happen in the USA.
No.
You know, they're gonna be like, no, you can't be back here. But they were so interested in facilitating our entry into the country that they gave us permission to come in, you know. So it was just a beautiful experience, man. And for those who haven't, you know, think about taking a vacation and going over there. You know, you'll go to Europe. So if you go to Europe, you know, you want to, I'm going to Paris, I'm going to Greece, I'm going to see the Parthenon and all of that stuff. Go to Africa. They got beaches, they got fancy hotels, they got golf courses, you know, they got everything that they got in Europe. Go to Africa. See where you're from.
Thank you. And the love I experienced in Africa was amazing. It blew me away. I remember I cried so much in Africa, not for sadness, but for feeling welcome and feeling loved. It was like, man, this is amazing. you know, I was like, I tell everybody, I was like, from Accra, Ghana to Monrovia, Liberia, to the next place I'll be going, and especially since I found out I'm 30% Kenyan too, I'll be going to Kenya too. And I was just like, it was amazing. I remember people asking, where have you been?
Yeah.
Where have you been? And I'm like, what? What are you talking? It's like, you don't like us? And I just breaking down. I was like, what do you mean? It was like, we never see you. You all don't come here.
Yeah.
You don't, blacks, you don't come here. You don't like us. And I was like, oh no. So we had a chance to dialogue about the misconceptions that were both held, like, because in America, we're told oftentimes, you're not really liked over in Africa. Don't go over there. They don't like black Americans. They don't like, and it's like, it's such a lie. It's such a lie. It's to deceive, to keep you once again from knowing who your identity, who you truly are.
Yeah.
And I just really want to empower people that you really need to know who you are, where you come from.
What we have to understand is that there was a strategy that was called divide and conquer.
Mm.
So in the 1800s, they had something called the Berlin Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of European countries came together, their leadership came together, and they decided that they were going to conquer the continent of Africa, and they were going to divide it amongst themselves.
Mm.
And that's exactly what they did. So Germany got, Belgium got, France got, Italy got, Great Britain got, they all just decided what they were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And through that process, they divided people linguistically.
Mm.
And then they created this structure of something that we call colonialism, because they established colonies in all these different places.
Mm.
But in the meantime, you had those of us who were snatched from Africa and brought here to America. So as opposed to dealing with colonialism, we dealt with enslavement, we dealt with segregation, we dealt with Jim Crow,
Mm-hmm.
we dealt with the implications of a system of racism
Mm-hmm.
and pseudo white supremacy. So there was a division that took place between us here in America and our brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
What they saw was that it was necessary to keep us divided, because united, we could push against those things that they put in place to subjugate us.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of that, a direct result of that, when we think of our brothers and sisters on the continent, we always think of them as them.
Yes.
And they think the same thing in certain ways. But there are some of us who are conscious and aware enough to understand that we're all one people.
Yes.
So I was watching Philippe Matthews yesterday, and he had a brother from the UK on, and the brother from the UK on was, he was all about his brothers and sisters in America,
Mm-hmm.
and his brothers and sisters in Africa, because once again, we're all the same people, and we've all been affected by systems that employ racism as a means of subjugation.
Mm.
So when we can get beyond the whole notion that it's us and them and realize that it's all just us, the difference is we sound different because of our environment. If you live in the South, you got a twang. If you live in New York, you got a certain accent. You live in Boston, you got a certain accent. If you live in Ghana, you got a certain accent, but you still have the same DNA.
Yes.
You still have the same melanin. You still have the same spiritual basis.
Yes.
Still have the same relationships with each other. When we look at people in this country, you from a certain tribe, I'm from a certain tribe or nation or whatever, and you can see people who look like other people because they're part of that same nation.
Right.
So we're just over here with different names, you're Rodney, I'm Vince, but I'm also Yeshua. I'm also Yao.
Yeah.
I'm also a whole bunch of other names that I have been given just based on my numerology and my astrology.
Okay. All right.
But those are things that we don't really dive into because of the controls that have been placed upon us. You know, when we become acquainted with our real names, then we become acquainted with the power that exists within us because we exemplify what our names are.
That's true.
So, yeah, my name is Vincent. Vincent means conqueror. Okay. So, yeah, it has some applications to my life. I mean, everything happens for a reason, but my name is also Yao. And Yao means that I was born on a Thursday. And because I was born on a Thursday, there are specific character attributes that are assigned to me just by virtue of the day that I was born. Okay. So if you're somewhere, and this is wisdom that has been handed down to me by my African brothers.
Okay.
If you're in a room and somebody needs something that a Yao is assigned to, all you got to do is say, is there a Yao in the room? Need met. It might be something that a Kwame might. So is there a Kwame in the house? Kwame comes forward, need met. But it's because you have an understanding of the power in the name and the characteristics that go along with it. You know, my other name is Yeshua.
Yeah.
Yeshua is a name that a lot of people know or don't know, but it is the redeemed of God.
Yeah.
You know, so understanding that allows me to have a certain understanding about who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing. But when you disconnect people from their understanding and awareness of those cultural ideas and those cultural identities, you separate them from their power. So in the African tradition, they have naming ceremonies for children. I was privileged to participate in a couple of them in my journeys to Ghana. They study a child. They observe things about that child that may be reminiscent of an ancestor. Because of the connection between that child and that ancestor, that child may receive that name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The name Babatunde, for instance. Babatunde means father who has returned.
Oh.
You know,
it makes me think of someone I know, actor Oba Babatunde. That's his last name.
Yeah. And there's no question that he probably got that name for that very reason. See. So, you know, there are so many benefits that come from connecting with your culture and ways that you can empower yourself just by knowing who you are. You know, that the American education system has gone through great lengths to keep us away from that understanding. That's why they leave so much out of the history books. You know, if you looked up the history of this country, and you looked up all of the inventions that we have been responsible for since we've been here, and you took all of those inventions off the table, we'd be sitting in the cold. We wouldn't have any way to keep our ice cream cold. We'd be having, you know, collisions at intersections because there's no traffic light there and nobody knows how to navigate that space. We wouldn't be getting blood transfusions. We wouldn't be getting open heart surgery. You know, there are so many things that we've been responsible for here. And conveniently, those things have been left out because they don't allow us to see who we really are. You know, and in a larger sense, we can go back and even look at things like language. Like the written word. Like our understanding of sciences, you know, like the Pythagorean theory, for instance. You know, I remember when we were working at that certain company. And I had to use the Pythagorean theory, you know, And I went through school always thinking, oh, I'll never use this. What's the reason for this? You know, but then in my adult life, I come to find out that the Pythagorean theory didn't belong to Pythagoras. It belonged to Imhotep. Imhotep was a Kemetic engineer and doctor and poet and all those other things, you know. So for me to know that this theory that I've been using is an African concept, man, I stick my chest out and say, yeah, you know, I'm connected to greatness. You know, it ain't about the Greeks, it's about us.
I love it. It's because it really is so much power in knowing your identity. And too, while we was talking, we're almost out of time, but I was thinking, you know, my name Rodney, it means famous person. But what exactly? How can I find out what my name is? Or, you know, you found out yours. Like when I go back to Africa, do I have to find that out? Because me and my wife, you know, we both want to find it out.
It's very simple, brother.
Oh, okay.
You want to find out what your Akan day name is? Just go to Google.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and just look at the day that you were born on. So look at the year, look at the month, look at that specific day, and whatever day you were born on, that's your day name.
Oh, wow. I'm gonna check that out. I'm definitely. I felt so much empowerment with just being in Africa, and I was like, wow, this is like where I come from. And then the fact that you and I are still here is because our ancestors were so strong to last through the Middle Passage and, you know, fight through, you know, the slavery, everything else to make sure, like, no, I'm gonna have a legacy. Wherever we're at, we're gonna have a legacy, and we're part of that. So that's why we should really, really be conducting ourselves so much differently than the way we do. So I'm hoping that.
An aspect of our culture is a phenomenon called rites of passage. And through rites of passage, we determine what our roles and responsibilities are. And that's something that is not in use to a large extent in this country. But those are things that we definitely need to go through, because it gives us a certain sense of value in knowing who we are and what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And to your point about our ancestors, we are them because they exist and we exist as a result of them. So we are descendants of the strongest of the strong, because no one has endured what we have endured in these past 400 or so years.
Yes.
So we have to continue to remind ourselves of the fact that that's who we are. We are the strongest of the strong. That's why there's been so much intentionality in keeping us away from that awareness, because it's like one person said, I can't remember who it was, but he said, if you want to get somebody off your back, stand up.
Stand up.
Stand up.
Yes.
They can't ride your back if you're vertical.
No, they can't.
You know,
like this.
Stand up. That's what we really have to do right now. We got to stand up. You know, I read a story of a man who's like 104 years old. And, you know, he's been talking about how he's been marching and doing all those things all these years. And what has changed? We're still asking for our freedom.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for them to give us permanent right to vote in America. Our right to vote in America is renewed every so often.
Yes.
So I think it's the year 2035 that it comes up for a vote again.
Which is amazing.
It is.
Yes.
So how are you going to consider yourself a full-fledged citizen if your right to vote is conditional? And then on top of that, you've got all these forces in play that are attempting to deny you your ability to vote.
Yes.
You know, so how can you ever really feel like you're a part of this when they keep giving you reasons to think that you're not?
Right.
You know, so that's That's why, you know, that's why I say we got to stand up. We got to stop asking for something that we're entitled to. You know, we're saying, I can't breathe. Watch your language.
Yes.
Because that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
I don't say I can't breathe. I can breathe. I will breathe. I am breathing. What else you got? You want to call me a minority? Nope. I ain't taking that. I'm not minor. I'm not less than you. So don't use the term minority to apply to me.
Yes.
In a larger sense, there are fewer of you than there are of us on the planet. Put things into perspective, okay?
Yeah.
Not a minority. Don't belittle me. Don't demean me by calling me anything less than what I really am. You know, that's where we have to get. We have to take, you know, you had Martin Luther King and you had Malcolm X. And they've given you narratives for both of these historical leaders.
Yes.
But what they don't tell you is that as their lives were coming to a close, they were actually coming closer together in terms of their philosophies.
Yes.
You know, they characterized Dr. King as a dreamer, but Dr. King was a rabble rouser.
Yeah.
He was going against the grain. Dr. King was saying, hey, the injustice of this Vietnam War, this is not right.
Right.
Saying, hey, you are denying Black people in this country economic power. So our reaction is, if you're not going to treat us right, we're not going to spend money in your establishments.
Exactly.
When he moved over to that paradigm of activism that will result in fewer dollars being spent, that's when the lights went out.
Yeah. That's when they took him out.
That's when they took him out. When he started advocating for not just civil rights, but human rights, which is the same thing that Malcolm X did. When he started lobbying for human rights over civil rights, that's when they said, oh, no, you know, you're trying to affect us on a global basis, and we can't have that. No. Because at the same time, they're looking at ways to exploit foreign labor so that they could make more money.
Yes.
See, and it's all connected. It goes back to that Berlin conference when they carved up Africa, you know, and they decided that we're going to utilize this continent to pull the resources, the natural resources from this continent so that we can make things. Yes. But we're not going to leave an infrastructure that allows them to manufacture so that they can, you know, employ people and raise themselves out of the poverty, you know. Yes. But I want to go back to something that you mentioned the last conversation that we had, and that was about the happiness that exists in spite of all of that. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm just remembering being there so many times and seeing children who had nothing but had so much joy. Yeah. I mean, you could give them a stick and a ball.
And they like, let's play. We got a game. Let's go.
Yeah. Or they could just draw something in the dirt and make a game out of doing something in the dirt. You know, our kids over here, they walk around with this in their hand all day long. You know, they come home, they pick up the controller and they're connected to technology. They're not outside getting vitamin D3 from the sun and breathing in fresh air and all those other things. Yes. You know, they're not eating a lot of the garbage that we eat here. So we're not seeing the same level of disease that we see over here. Yes. You don't have children who are on ADHD medication and being controlled in their classrooms. You know, there are so many differences. And so I see the children over there, brother. I walked into a classroom, you know, and it's like the teacher would say something, good morning, Mr. Robinson, you know, in unison, you know, respect. They're in a classroom that literally has no windows. There aren't computer screens in there. Yes. The chalkboard and a teacher and children who have uniforms on that are giving their attention to the instructor. Yes. You know, it's not like it is over here in certain ways. You know, I've been involved in, you know, teaching poetry in classes and workshops and stuff. And, You know, I remember doing a workshop at a local community center, and I had to have 2 teaching assistants in the class to keep the children under control.
Uncalled for.
But that's, you know,
Yeah.
so it's like you know, you're in school to be disciplined and not to learn.
Yes.
You know, but over there it's different. They're grateful to get that new school building, you know, and to get that computer, you know. And so you know, what I'm really seeing now, despite what people are seeing in their own respective spaces and places, is I'm seeing a coming together of Africans and African Americans based on the understanding that we are one people.
Yes.
And we do have something to offer each other. Now, are things perfect over here? No. Because, you know, many of our African brothers and sisters isolate themselves and, you know, stay in their own lane and stay away from us, you know,
Yes.
just like some of us go over there and isolate ourselves. You have expats over there that you know, they take advantage of the low cost of living. You know, I mean, I have a friend who moved to Ghana towards the end of 2019.
Yes.
Her rent for the year was $1,450. Now, yeah. So she could go over there, set up camp, and just chill. But she's an African drummer.
Wow.
She is an African American, born in America, living in Africa, teaching African children African drumming.
Wow. Man, I could continue this conversation forever. I'm sitting there like, I done kept you a lot longer than what I said. And
that's all right, man. I could do this all day, and you know, we can do it again whenever it's convenient for you. I'd be happy to come on and happy to bring you back as well.
I want to have you back on for more talks on this, because I think what we've done is we opened up a discussion that really needs to be seen and needs to be really dealt with. African Americans and Africans, we are so connected. There's got to be some things done to really empower each other. We really need to take it to the next level with this. I understand like why Marcus Garvey had that philosophy back in, you know, I read his book in college and other things like that, because if you're not accepted in the land that you are, maybe you do need to be in a different land. You know, it's like, I have been telling people, like my wife and I have said that one of our goals, we would love to own a home in Ghana. Not necessarily, not sure if we would move completely over there, but we would definitely want to spend some time throughout the year in Ghana, because we really fell in love with that land. And then as far as Liberia, my wife had a chance to teach class over there. I'm in the classroom, sitting in the back, bunch of teenagers, 50 teenagers walk into the room. Now, you know, over here, we got a room with 30 students and high school students. You can't keep them still. They disrespectful, listen, like everything. 50 teenagers walk in, sitting at their desk quietly, their hands on on the table, just kind of folded. I asked the headmaster of the school, I'm like, is this normal? Or are they doing this because we're guests? He was like, no. It's like education is top priority. We do not tolerate disrespect in the classroom. This is time to shut up and listen. And my wife just fell in love with it. She was like, babe, I want to go teach over there for about 6 months. I just want, because she felt appreciated as an educator. Over here, we don't appreciate our educators. We don't. We put them in substandard conditions. We treat them like garbage. We let everybody yell at them and blame them. When the home, we're still responsible for educating our children, contrary to what we believe over here, that it's the school's responsibility. I'm responsible for my son and daughter's education when they were kids. You supplement what we doing at home. Right. That's what it should be. So, brother, I want to get you back on. You and I will be in touch and we'll talk. If you just want to drop maybe about 30 seconds of always like a little parting shot or something, that we said a whole lot to encourage and build up build each other up. Could you leave us with something else, and then I'll just close us out, man. This was good.
Yeah, I would say that the most important thing that you can do in life is determine what your purpose is. And when you assign yourself to your purpose, everything else will take care of itself. When you are assigned to your purpose, you don't have to worry about how you're going to eat, how you're going to have a roof over your head, or any of that. Just do what you were put on the earth to do, and everything else will work out. That simple.
Mic drop. Man, brother, I love you, man. I appreciate it.
I love you as well, brother.
Man, I'm very grateful that we connected those so many years ago working at that one place. And that place was used to build us and push us out. That's the purpose of that place was. It was to really keep us focused on our real purpose. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for what that place did for me.
Yes.
And it got me living the life I wanted to live. And same as you, I have the highest respect for you. And Cleveland, everybody in Cleveland, Ohio, the United States, this is a jewel right here. This brother is a jewel that I'm talking to. Make sure you connect with my brother, Vince Robinson. Man, mention the name of your shows again so they can get out and support it too.
Okay. Open Door airs on WOVU 95.9 FM in Cleveland on 11 o'clock on Monday mornings. You can also get to that show by going to WOVU.org. And then 360 Info Network airs on AM 1490 WERE. And you can get to that show by going to newstalkcleveland.com.
Thank you very much. Remember, you guys, it doesn't cost us anything to go on FM, AM radio and listen and support this show. And that's what they look at. They look at listeners. So it's very important that you tune in and support my brother, Vince Robinson, and what he's doing, because education is truly power.
And just one real quick one. You can see both shows by going to my YouTube channel.
And your YouTube channel is with your name, Vince Robinson,
yes,
right?
Vince Robinson. It's that
there
simple.
You go. I subscribe, so that means you better subscribe. Make sure you show love to my brother. And I think we've got so many jewels. I don't need to say one more jewel there is today. What I'm going to say is that remember three things. You need to love God, you love yourself, and you love people. Life will be beautiful. And you're responsible for being the producer of your own life. We out.
Thank you for listening and watching the Produce Your Own Life podcast with Rodney Damon Collins. Be sure to rate, like, subscribe, and share on all podcast and social media platforms. If you have questions or would like to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to us anytime at produceyourownlifetv@gmail.com. Remember, life is a script. It's time to write your story. Until next time, produce your own life.